Hi, my name's Marisa, and I will be doing the introduction for Chapter 4, A Cruel Hand. The author starts out by talking about back in 1853, slavery had been abolished and blacks were free from the formal control of their owners, yet they were still not considered full citizens of the United States. First off, they couldn't vote. They were legally discriminated against, and they lived with the knowledge that at any time they could be captured and forced back into slavery. Because although slavery was abolished in the North, by law people were still presumed to be slaves, so Southern plantation owners could capture and deem black people slaves unless a white person went to court and claimed otherwise on their behalf. The book compares this time in 1853 to today and the life of a criminal who has been freed from prison. They have no right to vote. They are certainly legally discriminated against. And while on parole, they can be stopped and searched for any or no reason and returned back to prison for something as small as not attending a parole meeting with their parole officers. This is what our chapter is based upon. And to quote the author, "Hundreds of years ago, our nation put those considered less than human in shackles. Less than 100 years ago, we relegated them to the other side of town. Today, we put them in cages. Once released, they find that a heavy and cruel hand has been laid upon them." Within our current criminal justice system, it is highly unlikely that felony criminal defendants are told that if they plead guilty or are convicted of a crime, they will no longer hold their rights to jury service, or perhaps more importantly, they will no longer be able to vote. In fact, not for the rest of their lives. This is true even if a defendant pleads guilty to a minor drug offense. What's more is that the life of an individual labeled as a felon, whether the individual served time or not, is a harsh reality. They now find themselves as not being eligible for many government-sponsored health and welfare benefits, including food stamps, public housing, and education assistance. Their driver's license may be revoked, and certain employment and professional licenses are no longer available to them, as well as military service and owning a firearm are also rights that are put at risk. There are severe consequences to being denied these rights. Many ex-offenders are unable to find housing and jobs which affect not only themselves, but of course their families as well, as they are not able to provide well for them. The reality is that the great majority of ex-offenders are excluded from society, and although many of them try their hardest to succeed, all the odds really are stacked against them. As you can imagine, one of the first things that a newly released prisoner thinks about is where they will sleep at night. Some have families they can turn to, but many do not, and finding housing becomes a real challenge. Housing discrimination is not only common for ex-offenders, it's legal. Marking yes in that box that asks if you have ever been convicted of a felony or if you've ever been arrested automatically marks the individual as legally being able to be excluded from obtaining public housing. With the presence of public housing applications, those with even minor offenses are often denied housing. This is obviously devastating to both the individual and their families.